Welcome. I'm Lynn Creighton, a sculptor. I've exhibited my work across the United States, in France several times, in Luxembourg, in Italy, South Africa, in Japan. And today I want to use this time to talk to you about what I've learned as I've opened to myself. I completed graduate school. As I completed, I saw a piece of artwork that I just hated. I give thanks to it now, but at the time, it was a McDonald's dinner squished behind plexiglass. And what it told me was that I wanted to learn more about myself and about life itself so that I would have something meaningful to say with my artwork. To this end, I worked with a Native American medicine man who engaged me in transformational ceremonies. And I feel fortunate that my life was revealed to me while I still had time and energy to enact it. Purification lodges were low willow structures, with a fire pit in the middle. Red hot rocks are brought in, water is poured, and in the heated steam, the prayers are activated. I learned that I was a reflection of the Great Spirit to itself, and that the sacred, the energy of the sacred, was always in my life to guide and protect me. The Vision Quests were the other major ceremony that I did with my teacher, which I did for many, many years, out on the mountain, in the desert, in the cave, for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. The longest I did was 6 nights, working with my teacher. Asking for the universe to be my teacher and recognizing that the ancestors were populating the heavens and were there to guide and protect. I led those ceremonies, the purification lodges and the transformational and the Vision Quest, for over 20 years. Often women in those ceremonies prayed for healing from abuse. And I set out to find the cause of abuse. But when I entered my studio after the ceremonies, I had something I wanted to see in the clay. Later, the forms became bronze as their delicate nature, required them to be more stable. I first used paddles to activate the clay. This puts the clay at a distance from my brain so that it becomes more of a spontaneous reaction, less controlled and intentional. Because I feel like I don't really know what the celebration is, what the celebration would look like. This is Madeline, and it was the same process. I wanted the clay to show me where to go. I don't know what the celebration of life looks like. So it was a discovery process for me. And at the time, I was dancing, free dancing, as a way of, exploring and coming to know myself. So it's pretty natural that the celebration in my studio had some dance elements in it. And this is Penelope. I learned from my work what celebration was. This is Haiti, the songbird. She celebrates a woman who survived the Haitian earthquake she was working at a bank and was buried under the rubble for 2 weeks. Her husband somehow knew she was there and came every day waiting. And finally they did find her, and she was alive. And she was carried in a stretcher out from under the collapsed bank, singing. She was singing. So Haiti the Songbird is a tribute to that Haitian spirit that was still singing after 2 weeks buried under the bank. Well, finally I had to stop making girls, female figures in celebration of life, because I felt the need to write about what I had discovered. It was nearly 40 years of making sculpture in response to the to what I was witnessing in the purification lodges. But eventually I sat down. I was in my studio. I sat down and started to write. Now, I had started in 1989, the first time I started writing, so I had something to go with, and I had 20 feet of journals to go through to get the material. And then I used resource material, and it took quite some time. But that's what I want to talk to you about today. I had set out trying to find the cause of the trauma women were experiencing in the Purification Lodge. Why was there so much pain and anxiety around sexuality? How had the distance between men and women begun? Where did this taboo about sexuality come from? And why was it the source of so much pain? Why were women branded as evil, sinful, unclean? Why weren't we letting our children know about the gift of their sexual natures? Why were women so often considered second-class citizens or not citizens at all? And why were they subject to heinous crimes of subjugation and torture? Why don't we know anything about the sacred sexual ceremonies performed for the goddess creatrix? And why is she completely unknown to us? For 5,000 years, we lived in a secret life in which sexuality was condemned, where we knew only that the husbands owned the sexuality of their wives. Our ignorance has poisoned our souls and been the cause of destructive behavior towards each other. The major barnacle hindering women's growth into knowledge of themselves is the fact that men have owned their sexuality. In fact, this deception has been held for many years, in which women have been lacking in the ability to awaken to themselves and the truth of who they are. Some progress has been made, but the myth of the reality of who women are is still blurred by their belief that the wealth and power and status of their brothers should be theirs, instead of having a vision of who they truly are and what they're meant to do. Prehistoric, meaning before the God-fearing tribes invaded 5,000 years ago, prehistoric goddess-worshipping cultures existed and prospered for over 20,000 years. During those years, the women, the goddess actually was the preeminent being, providing the people with new life. 5,000 years ago, those people were conquered, and they're by warring, male-dominant Indo-Europeans who superimposed their God and rewrote history to begin at the time of those invasions and the beginning of their domination. Earlier times, when feminine principles honoring life and the processes of life were forgotten. The ancient celebratory processes of song and dance, the high energy of sexuality, were terminated. Orgasm lost its significance. No longer did the women take their turn greeting the men, creating the orgastic ceremonies on the temple altars. It would have been unthinkable in earlier times for the men to own the sexuality of the women, let alone diminish its importance by fulfilling the passing fancy of a man. For the ensuing centuries, war has been waged against the feminine and the sin of sexuality. Healing will come when women know, as their ancestors knew, that it is in the highest vibration of their molecules, orgasm, that the truth of who they are and what they're meant to do with the blessing of their life is illuminated. Men and women will once again join in the pleasure of celebration of each other and life itself. Thank you.